Right, it's about time to make a start. Subcommittee on Members' Remuneration and Operating Expenses Reimbursement. We have attained a quorum. It is time to make a start. Item 1. Election of Chairman of the Subcommittee. Under 22 and Annex of the Rules of Procedure, members are invited to make nomination. We need to have one member making the verbal nomination to be seconded by another member, and the nomination has to be accepted by the nominee. A nomination, please. Dr. Loy Kwok, I nominate Mr. Wong Ting Kwong. You don't have to step down from there. And a seconder. Dr. Martin Lau seconds. I accept the nomination. Mr. Gary Chen. Any further nomination for the chairmanship? Or any further nomination? If not, I declare that Mr. Wong Ting Kwong elected as chairman of the Subcommittee on Members' Remuneration and Operating Expenses and Reimbursement. Congratulations, Mr. Wong. Thank you very much. Do we need a vice chairman? No. Okay, then let's have a look at the way forward. Members, please refer to the background brief prepared by the Legislative Secretariat, CB or CRM 307/16 to 17. In the fifth term, the Subcommittee on Members' Remuneration made certain recommendations and issues requiring follow-up action, and we will discuss the way forward. One of our tasks is to review the members' remuneration and the operating expenses reimbursement, or OER, and make recommendations regarding the remuneration and OER for consideration by the Independent Commission on Remuneration for members of the Executive Council and Legislature and officials under political appointment system of the Hong Kong SAR. The term has just started for a couple of months, and members might wish to wait until some time has lapsed, like a year before a review would be undertaken, by which time there would be more information available for us to discharge our duties. Comments? Mr. Ho. Chairman, I don't think we need to wait for 1 year. We have some new members here, of course, and they may not have the information, but we have political parties and members who have been around for some considerable time, and I think we can have a listen to the members regarding the way forward. I've been reading the previous papers, and hardly ever do we have any deputations being invited. We did conduct a questionnaire survey, and the turnover rate is something like 33%. I think we can conduct a questionnaire survey to gauge the turnover rate regarding members' assistance, and then we can have some conclusions. Mr. Wu, Chairman. Now, there are issues left over from the previous term, like Mr. Ho said, turnover of the staff is really a fact of life, and we keep talking about this every single term after term, in particular those members from the returned from the geographical constituencies, the assistants pay has been on the low side, and I think we can get some information in this regard. I think it is, or the pay has been disproportionate, and they're paying a meager sum, $12,000 to $14,000 a month is about the norm. I think we can focus our attention on this. Perhaps the Secretariat might wish to do a bit of research. That this is public information in any case. If we have full strength for the members, so we can work out the level of pay. I think we have to make a distinction between the FC and GC members, and also those from the super seat constituencies. I don't think it's a good idea for us to have an average figure. We can make a distinction between the different constituencies. Right, just a reminder that we're here to discuss two things: remuneration for members, not so much for this term, but for members in the next term. The other thing is the OER, the operating expenses reimbursement. Now, you talked about the members' assistance, and they fall within the OER. I think we can have the discussion in two parts: remuneration and the operating expenses reimbursement. Mr. Tam, Chairman, to go along with Mr. Wu, regarding the pay for the staff in the ward offices as part of the OER. As a new member here, I feel that it is terribly difficult to support the district ward using the existing resources. It would be hard for us to hire people with the right experience and of the right caliber. It is indeed very difficult for members returned by geographical constituencies. It would be hard for them to set up 2 or 3 offices. Like Mr. Wu said, if we conduct some studies, we have to make a distinction. I think we can look at the number of offices members have. I understand that FC members, they would have joint offices with directly elected members. So I think we can work on the basis of the number of ward offices members have and tabulate the information. The other thing is members' remuneration. It would be a subjective matter whether the pay is high or low. Some would say that 90,000 would be too high. But if you look at the principal officials, now some members suggested that members should be linked with the undersecretary. Now, even the political assistants are getting paid higher than us. They have more than $100,000 up to $140,000. We are not paid as well as the political assistants. Now, that's not that doesn't include the pay rise that they're going to get. If you take into account of that, we are only 70% of what they get paid. Now, we talked about last term, where there was no increase, and 4 years on, we haven't taken any decision in this regard. Now, we're not doing this for ourselves. We're doing this for the next term. I think we can have some early discussion. Mr. Gary Chen, Chairman. As an old member here, in terms of the OER and also the pay for the assistants, it will be easy for us to say, but for new members, they have to hire people, they have to set up their ward offices, and things are still uncertain for them. If you ask us to make suggestions regarding the OER and also the remuneration, members who have got things set up already, they might find it easier to offer their comments. But for certain new members, it would be hard for them to get to grips with the situation. I think it would be a good idea for members to function for a longer period of time before they would be able to get the information. Now, unlike some members who collected $800,000 and set up their office, a lot of members are really proceeding cautiously. Also, there are some experienced directly elected members who told me that other than the problems of inadequate OER, they have to meet the transportation costs, in particular supersede members. They have to cover the entire Hong Kong. The transport costs have been going up dramatically. Professor Anthony Cheung is talking about this in the next room. They can only get the subsidy from the OER. So they are suggesting that something should be done regarding the transportation costs that they have to bear. Mr. Ip Kin Yuen and then Mr. Jonathan Ho. Chairman, I think we all share the concerns expressed by members regarding the remuneration. I think this is something that we have to have some discussion. As Chairman said, we are doing this for the next term and not so much for this term. So there would be an awful long time for us to deliberate on the matter. Chairman, about the operating expenses, are we also doing this for the next term? Is there any chance for the OER to be changed for this term? Well, normally we would be engaging in discussions for the OER for the next term, but if there are any pressing needs, the subcommittee can make recommendations to the Independent Commission. We did have some success stories in the past, Mr. Ip. If things can be changed for this term, then I think we can maximize the time to do it. As some members said before me, the daily operating expenses are nowhere near sufficient, and people are struggling. Now, if you refer to the paper, the background brief, paragraph 5, there is a reference to certain recommendations from the previous term that have not been adopted by the Independent Commission. These recommendations are important, and we have to bring them up for some discussion. Like, for instance, the entry point for the assistants, and the pay should be pegged with the relevant rank of the civil servants. And adjustment at the moment is in accordance with the CPIC. And this is there is a shortfall there. So the assistants' pay should be separated out from the allocation so that the staff will enjoy a reasonable entry point and a reasonable pay adjustment on an annual basis. These are fundamental things. I'm wondering why the Independent Commission failed to take these on board. And I do hope that when we talk about the way forward, we have to work hard and seek a reasonable deal for the members' assistants that would anchor the staff.
Actually, I've been amazed by the fact that how possibly directly elected members can handle the workload with limited budget. I'm from the education constituency. My staff and resources are there to help me cope with education policy, and I found it quite tough. I hired 6 staff responsible for various areas, but for the directly elected members, they have to have research on all sorts of policies and also cope with the work of their district offices. I really admire what they've done, but things are being unfair to them. I think that the expenditures of directly elected members should be appropriately reimbursed. Otherwise, their staff will have to bear with a very low salary. I hope that the subcommittee can explore this matter further and make proposals. Next one, Ho Kai Ming. Several points. I hope that this subcommittee can address this issue of adjustment in line with Consumer Price Index C. At district council level, they make adjustments on the basis of CPIA. So C refers to luxury products. So I don't see why our officers should have their salaries or adjustments tied in with CPIC. We're talking about broadband fees, online fees, and so forth. So that's nothing to do with CPIC. No matter what the level of adjustment is, the Secretariat perhaps could find out why we chose CPIC as the basis for salary adjustment. We should change it to CPIA instead, which is more relevant to us. As for our rental expenditures and staff salaries, can they be separated? Because the rental increases now actually make up a large proportion of expenses, particularly those who are renting offices in private premises. The rent would make up a large portion of the reimbursable budget, whereas the money could have been used on staff salaries. So the rentals and staff salaries, if they can be separated, like in the case of IT expenses, which are separated from the office expenditures, then there can be a dedicated budget for staff salary, and we can then ensure that we have adequate resources to hire the manpower we need. And thirdly, whether we can have a review on the calculation formula. Now it's 1 AO plus 2 EO and 3 clerks. That's the formula for the basis of our staff complement. And there is to be a 10 to 20% of additional manpower every year. But whether this formula can be reviewed, I think it's open to question. I think the government and us, we should actually look into this. As for how many AO staff there should be in our district offices, what should be the exact staff complement be like, there needs to be some sort of benchmarks determined to help us address the issue. So I hope that the Secretariat can look into this. I know previously you provided information in this area in your report, but maybe you can do further study to see whether or how many staff there should be in our office. And then we'll work out on that basis our reimbursable expenses. Thank you. Next one. Jihotik. Thank you. I think you've noticed that the functional constituencies and direct election and the district council sectors, the differences in the resources and the workload facing the members. Chairman asked that there should be more time given to newly elected members to see how much expenses their work incurs. I think the data from the previous terms should provide enough data, should be enough to help us judge, particularly for the expenses of district officers, what the level should be, and the staff salaries and staff complement needed. So if we have the data as soon as possible, then on item 2, as mentioned by the chairman, we can have discussion on that. Personally, on staff salaries, I think we should not be talking about salaries for the next term alone. I think for reimbursable expenses, we should kickstart a discussion first, as soon as possible, so that there can be consensus reached among parties. And if there are to be adjustments made, then that would be a good thing for Electrical itself. Mr. Tam, thank you, Chairman. I wanted to respond to Chair Ken's point that the experience of more experienced members can be a basis for discussion. I respect that, but on the other hand, you need to see that we are now deliberating for the benefit of the next term. So now that in this term we have newly elected members, we can ask the newly elected members to share with us the problems they faced. Like in my case, as a new member in an office, well, if you are re-elected, you know that you can continue to keep your office in housing department premises. But for new member, very few actually are allocated to such premises. So for new members, there's no point of you to expecting to be allocated empty premises to be your offices. That's an issue. And secondly, well, many of the shopping malls previously run by housing department have been taken over by Linkrate. And Linkrate would not be willing to rent those premises to new members. And for large landlords of other malls, they would not be willing to rent space to new members either. So you either have to look for ground premises or in less popular shopping areas where the rents will be much higher than that of housing department premises. So that's an issue not faced by more experienced members. Members who have been re-elected, for example, because they are given priorities. But for the new members, they will have to join the lottery, and there won't be any vacant premises available anyway. So that's one issue faced by new members. So you might want to look into that, because in the coming term, there will still be new members. Mr. Wu? Yes, something about a conceptual issue. Now that we're talking about accountable expenses, you may recall that during the electoral elections, whether you're from the functional constituencies or direct elections, we have to, on the basis of the population in each constituency, to draw up boundaries. For example, there are 5 seats in Kowloon East. The voters' volume is less compared to New Territories West. Because of the large population there, the budgets are higher there for elections expenses. That's reasonable. But now you are saying that the same standard applies to members. But if you haven't addressed this issue, then I hope that you can consider whether it's feasible to say on the basis of the number of constituents in our constituency as a baseline to show that whether the size of a constituency actually is proportional to the budget available to the member concerned. Let me try to sum up what members have just suggested and the issues raised. The first one is that on the expenses reimbursement. Some members suggested that for some items like transportation expenses could be included in the operation expenses reimbursable and not in their other allowances. And there are also members who suggested that it may not necessarily be a year later before a study is done on the level of expenses incurred by members, whether in terms of renting officers or hiring staff. So the Secretariat, if you want to carry out a study earlier, you might want to collect the information from the 70 members and ask them to fill in any forms that you need or questionnaires you need to get the information. And thirdly, there's the suggestion that now that every year the salary or the reimbursable expenses are adjusted in line with CPIC, but why not CPIA instead? I don't remember when, but we did discuss this before, but maybe the Secretary can look up the information. So I think those are the three issues. Lastly, that's the point that, as proposed by Wu Chi-wai, the calculation formula for members' operation expenses reimbursement level, which he suggests should be tied in with the or based on the number of people served that he's serving in his constituency, the targets of his service, and so forth. There should be an assessment made before coming up with the reimbursement level. So those points will be put on record, and they will form the basis of a future discussion. Any other questions? If not, no AOB, then that's the end of today's meeting. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. The next meeting, date of next meeting, we don't know yet. We have to discuss it first. We need to look at information first, and once we've collected the questionnaires, we will decide on the day for the next meeting. Probably in half a year, maybe half a year later. We can't meet too frequently for this subcommittee. Thank you.